Good evening and welcome. I'm Chris Parnell.
Reporting from Moscow.
Tbilisi.
Times Square.
May your dreams be your only boundaries in life.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of GHS TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Each week during this time slot, we take a look at different events, issues, and personalities that affect both you and our community. This week, we got out of the studio for a bit to grab some fresh air, to explore some of the Memphis wonders that are quite literally under our noses. If you haven't guessed it yet, right now I'm at the Memphis Botanic Garden, a beautiful 96-acre garden located in Audubon Park. Later on, I'll explore a Memphis gym with a tradition in environmental education excellence. And we'll explore one of the most beautiful private gardens in the area. But first, I'll talk with Miss Mary Helen Butler about what makes the garden such a special place. Take a look. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mrs. Butler. So now that summertime is officially here, what's in bloom now at the Memphis Botanic Garden?
Oh gosh, we like to say they're grand openings every day. So every day there's something new blooming. Of course, summertime is nice for the rose garden. But yeah, a lot of the wildflowers in our native plants in our butterfly garden look really pretty right now. Just lots of annuals around, so lots of color.
Lots of color, that sounds great. The garden dates back more than 50 years, but the groundwork for the area dates back to the 1800s. Can you tell us some more about this history about the garden?
Well, yeah, it started out as a farmland, but eventually the city of Memphis decided we needed a park out east. You know, as the population was moving this way, we had Overton Park in town, but they wanted a park here, so they bought this land to become Audubon Park. And in '53, that's when we date our kind of beginning, because a group of people from the Memphis Iris Society went and asked the city permission to plant some iris rhizomes somewhere where people could enjoy them. So they said, we've got this new park out here, and the volunteers went out and walked over the grounds, and they found a spot right over behind us, and they planted them, and they're still there today. In fact, that same group still comes out here and helps maintain and does some weeding and helps with it. So it really just was special in that it started like that by people who just love plants and want to share them with the public. Planted the next year, Memphis Rose Society helped us build the rose garden, and it just kind of came piece by piece, all of these different groups that love plants and built their gardens. So it's kind of different. Like some of the gardens you visit across the country started out as these grand estates that were private residences and beautifully manicured lawns, but no, ours was just a park.
And with the rose garden that like you talked about, and with the irises and all the color that you touched on earlier, you know, you guys have a lot of variety within your plants and flowers here. Can you speak on the diversity within?
Well, we have 26 different display gardens. So we have the formal gardens like this, these sculpture gardens, sensory garden, but then some more informal areas, a 4-acre woodland that we have right here in the middle of the city, where you go out and you feel like you're, you know, taking a hike through the woods, even though you're really just right behind Oak Court Mall. So 96 acres is a lot of land to have. We're lucky that we have a botanic garden that's, so in the city you don't have to drive out to get to it. So you can come by, swing on your lunch break and take a little power walk and nature break, or after school people come and walk and just enjoy being outdoors.
It's definitely one of the Memphis gems here for East Memphis. So you guys have 29 specialty gardens here at the Memphis Botanic Garden. And so can you walk us through some of the more popular exhibits here?
Right. Well, a lot of people know our Japanese garden. That iconic red bridge we just redid last year with the help of the Ikebana Club. And so that's kind of a special place. Lots of weddings and family portraits happen there. But in recent years, My Big Backyard is our family garden, has really become popular and really helped introduce us to a new group of people to come and enjoy the garden. So it's 2.5 acres of just play space and gardens designed to get kids reconnected with the natural world.
And you sort of touched on that with the end of your answer there, that the Life of the Garden series really expands your outreach a little bit. Can you speak on that?
Well, it kind of brings in a new audience. Maybe people who wouldn't think to come here and tour the Hosta Garden will come to one of the concerts and say, hey, this is really cool that we have this amenity right here in our city, and they'll come back, you know, the next week with their family and go through some of our gardens and start to appreciate it. And we are finding that a lot of the concert goers are joining and coming to our food truck parties and our events that we have throughout the year.
I'm going to go put you on the spot for a moment. And what's your favorite plant or flower here that you have in the garden?
Wow, that is a loaded question. That's like, what's your favorite child? I mean, they're all spectacular in their own way, but I think probably the wildflowers in our native woodland, you know, they're the first things that pop up in the spring, and they're just so ephemeral and beautiful. And so to come out here in March and early April is really special and find those little gems throughout the woodland.
Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Mary Helen Butler, for taking your time out of your day here to talk with us about this magnificent park here that we have here in East Memphis. It's definitely one of the most amazing amenities that we have here for our citizens of Shelby County. And so thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to us. During our time here at the Memphis Botanic Garden, we got a more in-depth look at the Memphis Botanic Garden with an in-depth tour here of the garden. Here now is a look at this Memphis gem.
More formal gardens. This is Memphis Garden Club Sculpture Garden, which we redid a couple years ago, and we decided we didn't have at that time very much sculpture out here, so we thought we would focus on the sculptural properties of plants, like making these parterres out of the boxwood, really focusing on the really cool branching habits of the trees, and we did some pleaching, which is a technique of training trees together. So we have some of these great sculptures behind me by Roy Tamboli. We have works by Cecil Humphrey, Carol Todd, Jim Buckman, and several other known Memphis artists. So we're really proud of our collection. It's a great way to mix gardens and art.
So we just moved on from the sculpture park up front, and now we're in one of the cooler parts of the gardens here. Can you describe where we are?
Yes, this is My Big Backyard. We call it that because it really is. Kids can take ownership of this. This is a garden for everybody, and you know, even if you have a small apartment or don't have a really huge backyard, you can come here and play. We have kids that come every day out here for their little play dates, and so 13 different little garden rooms within this of activities, things you can do like playhouses, tunnels to climb through, spider webs to crawl on, and we even have like plants that you can pick and eat, like mints and even this fig. You want to take a bite? It's really good.
I might have to save it for later. Should we move on?
All right. So this is our herb garden we're coming into, and it is one of the largest herb gardens in the country as far as botanic gardens go. Most gardens have their traditional culinary medicinal herbs, but ours is kind of extended into that wooded area there to include herbs of the field and forest. So we have herbs for crafting. We have a bed that's all herbs for fragrance, herbs for making teas, so lots of great uses.
So now we're coming up on our last stop here on our tour, and this might be one of the most unusual stops on our tour.
Yeah.
Can you talk about where we are right now?
Right, well the Japanese garden is definitely one of the most beloved gardens here on our 96 acres. So the actual name of it is Seijaku-en, which means Garden of Tranquility. So you can kind of see how peaceful and relaxing it is. Great place to come and just take a walk and relax and recharge your batteries. So the plant life here is really spectacular and changes throughout the season. So everything from the moss you see on this hill behind us to in the springtime we have bursts of color, whites and pinks from the cherry trees as they start to bloom. On into the summer we have the black pines that have been bonsai'd and trained, and they're really cool looking. And then into the fall, like the burning bush and some of the color that you get from the changing Japanese maples. So it's really a pretty garden year round.
Oh, well, thank you so much for taking us on a tour here today, Mrs. Butler, and I can't thank you enough for taking us on this tour and showing us everything that the Memphis Botanic Garden has to offer. So
Great.
thank you.
I hope you come visit soon.
We definitely will.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Welcome back. Right now we're in East Memphis at the Lichterman Nature Center, which is also a certified arboretum. Joining me now is Mr. Andy Williams, manager of the Lichterman Center. Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for joining us today on the show.
Well, thanks, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here.
Definitely. So we were just at the Memphis Botanic Garden earlier on in the show. For those of us who don't know at home, what's the difference between the Lichterman Center and the Memphis Botanic Garden?
Well, there are a variety of differences. We're part of the Pink Palace Family of Museums, which is a Memphis-wide museum system. As such, we have elements of a museum, including 2 exhibit buildings. One features environmental exhibits focusing on human impact, metamorphosis, and change. The other aspect is the exhibit building is the Backyard Wildlife Center. That building has live animals that live in the lake, meadow, and forest habitats that we highlight here at the Nature Center.
This is a barn owl. This is one of the native owls to Memphis in the Mid-South. This bird is a non-releasable animal. This bird was unfortunately hit by a car and is blind, so that's why it lives here at Lichterman Nature Center. They don't make great pets. We actually have special permits to keep these birds, but owls have a lot of unique adaptations that make them great at surviving in their environment. They're nocturnal, so they have really big eyes that allow them to see at night. They also have this sharp curved bill, which this one is kind of tucked behind the feathers, but that allows them to tear their prey into smaller pieces. Most of the prey for this bird is going to be mice, small mammals, and mainly rodents. They also have really powerful feet. We call them talons in these birds, and that's actually what they use to catch and kill their prey.
Here at the Nature Center, our mission is to encourage stewardship for the earth by increasing the visitors' appreciation and understanding of the natural world. And so we go into detail not only about the animals that live in the Mid-South, but about the plants. And so here we have a lot of exhibits and hands-on learning to help people experience the natural world, sometimes for the first time.
Wow. So you guys here at the Lichterman Nature Center have 65 acres of land here. And so what do people see when they come to the Lichterman Center?
Well, you can see as much or as little as you care to. Of the 65 acres, roughly 7 acres of it's built environment with our picnic pavilions, lawn areas, interpreted gardens. About 11 acres is covered by a lake that has a beautiful boardwalks across it, lotus in full bloom, turtles to feed, this sort of thing. You can walk through the forest. There are roughly 3 miles of trails that go through the forest and meadow. In the forest, you'll find that we're a certified arboretum, and along the way, trees will be labeled. You can use your smartphone to go online and get more information about the trees at our website, where we have listed the trees in the arboretum. In the meadow, in the demonstration gardens, we have a lot of herbaceous perennials, plants that die out of the ground and come back in various ways during the year. They're labeled, and they're reader labels that help you understand these gardens in the context of the use they serve for wildlife. Are they wildlife habitat, nectar food, or nectar sources for butterflies and hummingbirds, medicinal and edible plants, and also larval food for caterpillars.
Well, so one of your main focuses here at the Lichterman Center is environmental education. So how do you accomplish this?
Well, we serve over 30,000 school children each year on field trips. We accomplish it with a staff of, we've got 2 full-time educators and a staff of about 20 part-time educators with a variety of programs that are found pretty easily online. You go to our website, there's our educator guide that talks about the various field trip experiences. But field trips are the largest single source of visitors to the Nature Center during the year.
So with the 65 acres of land that we talked about earlier, it must offer quite a challenge for any grounds crew, any groundkeeping team. So what goes into keeping the Lichterman Nature Center in such absolute amazing shape?
Well, thanks for the kind words there. We have a very meager staff, but very talented people. And so we work not only with our staff members, but through an army of volunteers. We could not do what we do in education, animal care, plant care, or grounds maintenance without volunteers. We have 65 volunteers who regularly donate one or more mornings every single week to help take care of this place.
So what do you hope people get out of visiting here at the Lichterman Nature Center?
Well, first I hope you have fun, and also learn something. Every day that you learn something is a good day. Our role is to heighten people's understanding, appreciation of the natural world, and what we want to do is not make people necessarily experts, although we have experts to help you with things, but to tweak your interest and to find out if in the natural world if you're more attracted to the plants, the animals, bird watching, fish. There's a number of different aspects of the natural world that are interesting and provide a lifetime of learning and understanding.
How are those areas developed, and what are some of the more popular areas here?
Well, it depends on your individual preference. All the areas were developed through a public-private partnership between the City of Memphis and the Memphis Museums Incorporated, which is a 501c nonprofit. The City of Memphis provides amazing support for our buildings and help with the grounds, and they pay my salary, among other things, whereas MMI raises funds to host our education programs and to build the exhibits. So we've got strong support with the government, with a nonprofit, and as I mentioned before, our volunteer support, both financially and through their hard work, is invaluable.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andy Williams, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
This is definitely one of the most amazing museums that we have here in Memphis, and I can't thank you enough for joining us today and telling us more about the Lichterman Nature Center.
Well, thank you so much.
We got a chance to tour the Lichterman Nature Center and discover that there's a lot more than what meets the eye. Take a look.
We're standing on the back porch of the Backyard Wildlife Center building. It's a separate exhibit building that focuses on animals that live in the lake, meadow, and forest. So we have kiosks in the middle that have individual habitats for animals that live in the lake, meadow, and forest, but we also have small-scale replicas of the lake, meadow, and forest, and right now we're standing in front of the lake replica. The lake replica is actually a 12,000-gallon aquarium.
Wow.
In this aquarium, the main inhabitants are 70-pound alligator snapping turtles surrounded by all sorts of minnows and bluegills and such. To our right is a boardwalk that leads directly to the forest observation platform that is 2 stories up in the canopy.
Wow.
There are reader rails all around to help you understand what you're looking at. Behind us, or actually behind you, is a meadow replica. The meadow replica showcases plants that live in the meadow, but also we have 2 observation beehives that are just off the back porch that you can watch Italian honeybees coming and going. So it's perfectly safe. They're tame, that's stuff in good ways away. But in this building as well, we house education animals. I mentioned earlier we serve over 30,000 school students every year. So when they come, we like for them to see the animals in exhibits, but we also have our trained interpreters having live animals to help understand about animals that live in the Mid-South, and also look for clues for animals that may live in the lake, meadow, and forest habitats.
One of the Mid-South's greatest events is turning 45, and you're invited to the party. GHS TV will bring you live coverage of the 45th Annual Germantown Festival from the Germantown Civic Club Complex. Our reporters are your eyes, ears, and mouths to the region's top artisans, entertainers, and the area's most delicious food. Tune in and be a part of the tradition. Live coverage of the 45th Annual Germantown Festival begins Sunday, September 11th at 2 p.m. only on ghstv.org. This is one birthday bash you don't want to miss.
Welcome back to this special garden edition of Crosstalk. I'm your host, Brian Scott. We couldn't do a gardening show without taking a look at some of the most beautiful private gardens in the area. And joining us now is Mrs. Jean Ward Jones, local private gardener and member of the Master Gardeners Club. Check it out. Thank you, Mrs. Jean Ward Jones, for joining us today. So can you just describe your garden for us?
Well, I call it an eclectic garden. I have a lot of friends who call theirs country gardens, but theirs seem to have a lot more style than mine does. Mine's just an eclectic collection of lots and lots of things. I see a bare spot, I feel I have to fill it.
Yep.
My husband likes to say that my hobby is digging holes and filling them with money.
So what can all be found within your garden?
Well, right behind you is a chased tree. There was once a crabapple tree there, and it had to come down because of rust on the leaves, and I learned that you can't grow any kind of an apple tree within 2 miles of a juniper, because the juniper carries the spore that kills that causes the rust on the apple tree leaves. Wow. I have lots of perennials, and the local gardeners do a really good job of selling the perennials that are blooming at any time of the season. So thanks to them, I have lots of color through every season, not because of anything I planned, but because they sell it when it's pretty. I have, this is an oak tree that my husband planted. We had planted a big magnolia over there behind us, and it was a green giant. And when we planted it, we had not expanded the patio and built the sidewalks, and we didn't realize that a giant was really going to be that big, and we had to take that down, and now it's replaced by a crepe myrtle. Wow. We have a row of sweet gums over to the other side, and a lot of people don't like those because of the sweet gum balls. But I gather those sweet gum balls every spring, and I put them all around my hosta to discourage the slugs. I have lots and lots of hosta. Around front, I have a blue angel that is one of the biggest ones, and it just happens to have grown up in the middle of a gardenia. So it's very pretty in the spring when the gardenia is blooming on all sides of it, and those great big leaves, the dark blue leaves, are right in the middle of it. Very, very pretty. When you first got here, how was the garden when you first moved in, and how is it right now? How's that change been for you? Well, when we first moved in 98, I had just retired from FedEx in 97, and it was fence to fence grass and fence to house grass. We only had one little small square of patio. Everywhere you looked, there was grass. We did have the one tree right here in the center, that crabapple tree I mentioned before, and at that time it was just a little stick. Our children came in. One of the first things that went up in the garden, our daughter and her husband built that arbor. A son found a swing and hung up the swing, and another son put rocks underneath it. So that was a real family effort to put some shape into the garden. Then I started building beds, and at first I just had straight beds with a piece of lumber as the edge. And I went to a class of some kind, somebody's presentation, and learned that your beds should be curved, and that they should, there's some kind of magic formula, the tallest thing in the bed, and that determines how wide the bed should be. Anyway, I realized that what I had done was absolutely not right. And that's when I began to get interested in becoming a master gardener. I was realizing the vastness of what I didn't know. I became a master gardener in 2002, and at that time I was also working at the Memphis Botanic Garden as the director of volunteers. So I was very much involved with the master gardeners. and I've now become a lifetime Master Gardener. That was 14 years ago. So I've certainly learned a lot through that program. And of course, we are a program about serving our community as well.
So if someone wants to start their own garden, just as beautiful as your garden is here today, do you have any tips or tricks on how to get started with that?
Oh my goodness. Well, if you have some kind of a plan at the beginning for what you want to do with the space, that certainly conserves your effort and your money. So putting together a plan, knowing where you're going to spend your time is important, because that's the area you want to address first. You really need to have a good backdrop to your area, and that's what you get from trees and shrubs. You need to be aware of the seasons. So some of those trees that you're going to be putting in and some of the bushes, you need to make sure that they're evergreen so that you have some color in the wintertime and not just the bones, even though those bones are pretty important. As you start coming in toward where you live, you want the smaller and the lower placed plants so that you have some tiering down into the area, where you play and you gather and you talk, so that you look out on all of that. I think I mentioned before that the nurseries in the area do a really good job of having what's blooming at any particular time. So that will enable you to plant things that will give you blooms and color throughout the year. One of the things that I like most about gardening is that every season you've got another new palette. So that's the thing I like about it. You can just be so creative, and it's your garden. Who's to tell you you're wrong?
Yeah.
So it just gives you an opportunity to truly express all that creativity that's living in there.
Well, you definitely do a great job at expressing that creativity. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, Mrs. Jean Ward-Jones, and telling us about your garden and about the Master Garden Club, and how to get started with your garden and everything about gardening. So thank you so much.
Well, I've enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you. Memphis is without a doubt an urban city, but thanks to the Memphis Botanical Gardens, the Lickerman Nature Center, and people like Mrs. Jean Ward-Jones, people are exploring and adventuring with the greener side of life. Thank you to all of my guests for being on the show with me today. I'm Brian Scott, and for all of us here at GHS TV, Germantown High School Television, thank you for watching. We hope to see you again next week on the next edition of Crosstalk.